Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the News Behind the News with Ralph Cantava on Mix 94.7 FM. I hope that you've been having a blessed day so far. This afternoon, we're going to be definitely having a cultural conversation. This, of course, is a pillar of the program, speaking to persons who can share with us, some information about St. Martin history, our heritage. And I have here with me Miss Perla Rombley. Good afternoon, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Okay, great. So I've met you through my wife since we were dating, and she always used to say, this is a lady you have to know. She's just like you. She likes to speak to elders, and she knows a lot about St. Martin. She's a taxi driver. She knows everything about St. Martin. And so said, it was indeed true. But before we get into all of that, I'd like for you to share a bit about yourself and a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, as you said, my name is Perla Rombley. I was born on the island of Aruba. And like a lot of the local of St. Martin, at a certain time, they went to Aruba to get their families taken care of in Aruba. Now, I usually say it like this, okay? My grandfather, he went to Aruba to work, and there, while he was there, he had 11 children, okay, with my grandmother. My grandmother. And while in Aruba working, they built a home and everything, After which my grandfather decided to come back home. Once he decided to come back home, I was one of the grandchildren that came back home with him. Mm. And he decided although he built his home over there, he lived over there so much years, when he felt it was time to come back home, he wanted his resting place to be here in St. Martin. Mm. And after coming back home, he did, a few years after, did pass away here in St. Martin. Now, what was funny about that, years and years after my grandfather died, we all embraced my grandmother. Mm-hmm. Now, my grandmother was between her children, between Aruba, mm-hmm. where's home, and St. Martin, where's home, because she's from St. Martin
as well.
Yes. And her last vacation from Aruba, she came to St. Martin. And just how my grandfather passed in his sleep, she came home here in St. Martin, passed in her sleep, and is also buried here on St. Martin by her husband.
Wow. That's interesting.
Now, a lot of us, we were born on the island of Aruba, but as I usually tell my guests, because I'm a taxi driver, I'm from here. Mm-hmm. My roots is from here. My grandparents, my father, my mother and I was born on Aruba, but my life was like a yo-yo. It was 3 years in Aruba, 5 years in Martin, 2 years Aruba, 1 year St. Martin. I was back and forth. And that was with primary school, even high school. That's how my life was. Now, if I stay away from Aruba too long, I miss the beaches. And if I stay away from St. Martin too long, I miss the hills. So it just continues back and forth.
Yeah, so that's just how you stay, basically.
Yes, that's it.
Well, I have yet to visit Aruba, actually.
Aruba's beautiful. It has some of the best beaches you could dream of. I'm talking white sand beaches. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Cool. So one of the things that's interesting, Perla, is the fact that you took it upon yourself to do quite some extensive research on your family heritage, your lineage, and so forth. So can you share that with us and some of the interesting facts that you've learned?
Okay, yes. First of all, my family background is Carties, Richardsons, Gums, Chitiks, Germans, we're going right back to French Quarter. My mother had a great aunt. Her name was Martha Illich. She actually lived to be 102 years old in French Quarter. Yeah, and this lady, I remember in her 101 year, she was, she knew, she was bae. She was, she knew everything. She would tell us how in the morning after they sell what they had to sell before they go to school and get the milk and all that, she would have to walk up to Mount William Hill and go to the open bar school. That is Orania School now. I went to Orania School. My grandfather went to Orania School. You know what I mean? So it was interesting to know how long that school was there, and that's where they started out. She would tell us even about going over to the French side. They would not, the road where we take now, that was not where they used to take. They used to take from in St. Peter's, that high hill, to go down into the French side. I think the property had belonged to the family of a ex-police, a former police. I can't remember his name right now, but all the way up there they would go to get to Marigot and stuff like that. A lot of times we joke about in my family when we say, I'm from St. Martin, I'm from Aruba, I always say in Aruba, all of us who say we're from Aruba and our names is Rombley, Richardson, Cathy, that unless your name is Herman and Cruz, you're not from Aruba. You're from these islands here. You're from St. Martin. You're from, these neighboring islands, Anguilla. But when things were a little difficult here, they had the oil refinery there. And most of the families went over to Aruba to work. And it happened so that my husband's family was also over there. I personally didn't know them and know that, at that time. But my mother-in-law, she tells me a lot of stories about them in Aruba. And she actually knew my great-grandmother, who actually died before I was born. Or I think it was 1 year when she died. And she would tell me stories about my great-grandmother, Ernestine Maddenborough. It was living in Aruba. Most of the people from these islands down here they lived in San Nicolas. Or another name for San Nicolas was Chocolate City.
Chocolate City, yeah.
Yeah, because all the chocolate-colored people were living up there. And we used to live in front of a flying field. We would every now and then see the small planes coming in. And when we had, after the flying field went out of business, they stopped with that flying field. We had the bigger one. We used to do a lot of sports like kite, flying kites and riding bike on the airfield. Aruba is so flat that while you're walking, even on the flying field, you get practically deaf from the breeze blowing from the ocean. It's wonderful. I mean, that's how we grew up right there. My grandparents had their home. They raised children and grandchildren in that home. And we were not, was not allowed to go outside and play. The yard was big and all the children had to play. If the neighbor children want to come, we would come in the yard and play, And of course my grandfather was always there. My grandmother was always there to watch and, make sure we don't get in too much trouble. Okay? In that little neighborhood that I lived, we had the Arundels. This young man who does sing calypso, Fish the Mega Boss, his grandmother or great-grandmother, I think, lived in that area. The Hodges, it's just only St. Martin, practically rooted people were living there in that area.
Yeah.
So,
and I can imagine how beautiful that is.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they would look out for each other. I remember when one Sunday we had to go to Sunday school. We used to have to go through like a track, we'd call it the Kunuku, no? And we were going to Sunday school, and we started to pitch rocks on the roofs of one of the houses. Before my grandmother reached to church, she had already heard about it, that what we did, we got punished for that, you know. So in that neighborhood, they would look out for each other, look out for each other's children. They knew each other, grandchildren, other children. So they would actually...
Yeah, and it was basically just like you hear the stories of how people who grew up in St. Martin back in those days, it is basically exported, St. Martin livelihood and placed it in Aruba.
Exactly. You couldn't have said it better. That is exactly what happened. And it extended even to what we would eat, the kind of food we would eat. The fungi, the fish, the ground food. Our area, San Nicolas, that's what you find. I had an aunt, her name, we used to call her Auntie Blanche, and she's actually my great aunt. But we're so close, everybody's your aunt. And she used to make, in Aruba we call it kolechi, and chupa bebe. Those is...
Never heard of that. Go ahead.
Okay. Kolechi is something sweet. It's like sugar, burnt sugar.
Okay.
Something like that. Chupa bebe is what we would call here in St. Martin. It's like rock. It was hot, like jawbreakers. That's what we would call it here in St. Martin.
Okay.
And she would make those and have them there selling. And all these things that we had here in St. Martin, if you want to find it, you find it in San Nicolas, Yeah,
that's lovely. And I guess even with that, you've grown up seeing persons and then moving back home like your grandfather did, who maybe if they had land would develop that land, or maybe come back and buy land and build.
I think a lot of the families that went to Aruba, when they left here, they already left a lot of land here. For instance, my grandfather, he was one of 5 children. And you see like Garden of Eden, that whole area there, that's our family's property. That's like him and his brothers. He had one sister, and his sister and one of his brothers also, all of them went away. But the property stayed here, And then my Uncle Sinclair, he came back and started to live on the property. One of my uncles, Henry, great uncles, he went to the U.S., So, and then after my grandfather came back. But for that period of time, the work was in Aruba, so everyone went to Aruba. They left what they had here, and they went to Aruba.
To create that sustenance, because we were well aware that at that time really people in St. Martin lived on subsistence farming, and there were very few entrepreneurial ventures, you could say, besides those who may have worked with whether it was school or just public administration, which so wasn't that many jobs either.
No.
Yeah.
And even growing up in Aruba, this is something, and I think, again, it comes from St. Martin. Our family, as I said, was big. My grandmother had 11 children, 1 passed, and we had lots of... Our house was always children. The grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, everyone was there. And I could remember my grandfather in the back of the house always had a little chicken coop with chickens. And in front of the chicken coop, he planted potatoes, sweet potatoes and stuff like that. Now, what was weird about that, Aruba is dry. and a lot of it is coral. So you could imagine him growing these potatoes, and and in especially that neighborhood in San Nicolas, you would find a lot of people selling things out of their homes, to get by, and that was part of.
Yeah, that was the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I forget who it was that I interviewed, who shared, for example, what folks would do too is that when they travel from St. Martin, there would be the box of the different treats and snacks.
Oh, yeah.
Well, snacks being fruit,
Yes,
but the goodies of St. Martin land.
Yes.
Sweet St. Martin land.
You could imagine being in Aruba and then you get a soursop.
Oh, yeah.
Man, or mangoes. I could remember my grandmother. She used to, when she get the mangoes, when the box with the mangoes, they would come green. So she would hide them away. But all day, you're smelling mango. You don't know where this mango coming from. It's just smelling this mango. And when everybody goes sleep, you wake up, maybe to go to the bathroom, and you see my grandmother with one mango, and she's sucking the mango. She eating a mango, boy. And that was some of the things that, she would always have hours, but hours, of course, would have to cut up and all of that for all the children.
Yeah, everybody together.
But she enjoyed her mango. Those were the treats, because you don't find mango trees and then soursop trees and these kind of trees in Aruba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what was it like, even from what you've witnessed, but even the stories you've heard, as far as what the community used to do to, in a sense, community gathering, entertainment, and then keeping things lively?
Honestly, everything was done in our yard. Even my grandmother used to go to the YMCA. Okay, the YMCA used to have this, the ladies, like where the ladies get to sit down and they have their social time. And I could remember those was our most fun nights, because as children, you have this big yard to play in. Everything is dirt, so you can imagine what our feet and everything used to look like under the moonlight. And we playing games. We playing catch. In Aruba, we call it Peter Fry. Touch each other and you run, and and we playing and we were having so much fun. And then the time comes that my grandmother comes home. Now everyone knows when grandma come home, everyone runs to the car, the vehicle that she's coming to. Grandma home. But after that, it's time to go bathe and get in your bed because, party done.
Fun done, yeah.
When we had, in April, when we have the high winds and we have kite, we used to actually make kite with the material and stuff that we have there. That, again, those things is from learning from Hans and Martin. The parents would teach you and it was like your uncles, your aunts, even the adults coming out, and I could make a better kite than you. I could make a cappuccino. I could, and then we would make these things and go and fly them, and, those were our times, when how we enjoy.
Something that came to mind I'm curious about, and you could go into this based on what you're doing and stuff, is like you shared about how your grandfather and his siblings, they had their property and stuff. What have you learned even then, through the process, even as far as the history of the land development in that sense?
Ooh.
I know that's a little
yeah, that
I could go deeper with that, but I'll let you go based on what you're able to share.
Okay, well, so on St. Martin, land on St. Martin, property in St. Martin. I'm going to focus more on Dutch Quarter because
Dutch Quarter specifically. Actually, yes, because I know that's
Dutch Quarter is a special area. Yeah. Government, for instance, don't have as much say or play in Dutch Quarter because the property in Dutch Quarter belongs to families. Okay, if you, I'm going to use again Garden of Eden as an example. Garden of Eden belongs to the Carty family. You might go further and Zochenrus, as you all say, Zochenrus, Zochenrus. That area there belongs to, for instance, the Arundels. Okay? And that is where, again, family come into play, because my grandmother family my grandmother is related to the Arundels. So again, Zochenrus area there, that's where we tie in. Okay, I use those as examples. Now, where property is concerned, I think back in those days, they didn't mind too much how they structure their property. Like, for instance, my uncles, and I remember my uncle St. Clair, when I came back and I started to work, I went to him and I said, Uncle, I would like to, start to build my home. He was like, okay, go ahead and build. And I'm like, okay, where? He said, anywhere, look, nobody can take you off of this. This is yours. This is all your family own. Just go up and build. And a lot of people done that. Mm. They want to use a property, we just go and build, and no one thought at that time on measuring okay, let's divide the property. It's 5 sisters and brothers. Let's divide it in 5, and then you take your half, and this one take. It was just, it's all your property, just build, know. So there, I think we could have done differently.
Yeah.
We could have done differently. Now, there's a lot of family issues. Disputes. For instance, disputes in that particular property. But if today or tomorrow the family come in and say, listen, we have to do whatever we have to do, and so it's going to cause a lot of problems, because there's innocent people caught up in this whole thing too. Mm-hmm. So where property is concerned, I think that could have been done or handled differently.
Yeah, I think, when you review that one example, that can be replicated in almost every neighborhood of Manhattan.
Yes.
It was, done with a lot of innocence and, that real friendliness and kind nature that we have as Siman people, that unfortunately end up getting exploited.
Exactly.
And that has led to arrears, Yeah. So, having shared all that you shared, I think what makes you interesting as well is that, you have this deep knowledge and information. And this is something I know that you've carried in your profession as a taxi driver. Yes. So I'm curious about, what led you, what is your inspiration for becoming a taxi, and if you can share your experience being in the game, and how long have you been as well?
How long have I been? I think more than 10 years. I used to work for the Maho Resort, Sonesta Maho. That was the last place I was working. And my mom was a taxi driver, actually. Mm. So she asked me if I would like to get in that field. And I was like, no, I like what I'm doing. I want to continue what I'm doing. I don't want to be a taxi driver, mommy. And she said, you keep working and building others. One of these days, you should try to work and build yourself. And I agreed with her. I think my first business I had when I was 17, 18. It was a babysitting service that used to cater to the resorts, to the different resorts. And that was interesting. Yeah, it was
very smart.
Yeah, basically what it was, I put the two things I love most, children and dealing with tourists, together. That's all it was. But in 1995, after Hurricane Louis, it was the office, everything got trashed, basically. And I didn't want to start back the business. I didn't want to start again afresh. So I decided to go work.
Close off.
Yeah, close it off and go work for Sonestamajo, which was nice. But I remember while working there, my second or third day, I met a friend of mine, and he told me he was working for them over 20 years. I was like, 20 years for one company? He was like, yeah. When it was Concord, he was working for them. And I remember after that conversation walking in the lobby, and I said, God, please don't leave me work for no company so long. I want to work 10 years max, Lord. You know? And I started having this conversation, me alone. And I'm like, Lord, don't leave me ever have to work so long. I want to work with a goal. I want to build my home and after go work for myself. And the years passed by. And the funniest thing, at the end of my 9th year, I started, I was working activities coordinator at the time. They sent someone for me to be my boss, but they wanted me to train that person. And I was like, no, if this person's my boss, they have to train me. I'm not doing it. So I asked again. I went to God and I said, if this is of you, you need to allow my manager, the top guy, to ask me how much I want to be paid out so I can leave. All that time I didn't realize that it was coming within the 10 years. So I was called into his office one day and he said, I realize you don't want to train this lady. She, for whatever reason. And I told him, I said, she's my boss. I don't have to train her. She has to train me, if anything. He goes, and you guys can't see eye to eye. How much would you want us to pay you out?
Wow.
And I said, okay, I'm going to get back to you. When I walked out, that's when I realized, hey, listen to what question he asked you. You ask God that. And walking out, I decided, I went to the labor office, checked what they said, talked with, some other family members and stuff. And I got paid out. And from there is where I started to work with a taxi. And I'm going to tell you, I had no regrets. I enjoy working with guests. Showing them our island, explaining them the things that, we don't usually, the behind the scenes things, My tours, I try to do my tours different than just the regular tours, because a lot of our guests, they come back year after year and they see the same thing. So some of my tours took us in areas like St. Peter's, South Reward, up in the bush, and those are the things that's the way I, enjoy doing it. After one of the hurricanes, I took my guests to Sucker Garden where we have the salt mill. And I was I was a lot embarrassed because there was a lot of trash and so around there. And I keep apologizing to the guests because I really didn't realize that, after the hurricane, the stuff stayed there. It wasn't cleaned up. And my guest was happy. We took pictures and all of that. Of course, we angled them that they don't pick up all the trash because that's a nice area. Have you ever been there? You have to go there. It's beautiful. So the next, I think 2 days after, we had cruise ship in port. But I did not go to work that day. I went there and started to clean up because this is what we want to show our guests. that was a part of us, our history. It had no reason looking and remaining like that.
Yeah,
so
deplorable condition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some other people came in, help us clean it up. People brought the trucks after that. We clean up the area. And now you could go there and take pictures and, so.
Great, great. I'm glad you shared that, particularly especially the part of making your tours as dynamic as you can, basically.
Yes.
So I know you do take persons to the non-common areas, which I find is very cool because you're showing them the reality of St. Martin, and it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Right.
Yeah, and that and when we see something that needs improvement, it doesn't hurt to take it upon your own will to make that difference.
Exactly. St. Martin is beautiful. We have lots of places that you can go, even up in the hills, and the views, Most of the time from our port, because I'm a taxi driver on the port, we would go to Orient Beach, to the Monument, to Orient Beach, Marigot,
Harold Jack.
The regular places. But there's so much more interesting places. I remember after this hurricane, 2017, when I came back and I drive through Grand Cause, I was in tears. When I drive to Orient Beach, I was in tears. I was literally crying. Why? Because it was gone, But even up in the, there was a place up in the hills on the French side where they used to make rum. They used to make a liqueur. And we used to take people all in there, some of the
in
taxi
Concordia?
drivers. Sorry?
In Concordia?
No, it was in... Let me see. After you pass Grand Cause, La Savane, you're going up in that area where the
French cul-de-sac?
No, it's not French. French cul-de-sac had one place too.
Yeah?
But it wasn't French cul-de-sac. It was when you're going up Peak Paradise area there. It had a lady,
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
in the hills there. And even Peak Paradise, at one time, a lot of tourists used to go up there and people used to go up there. Taxis used to go up there. But then the road gets so bad and nobody do anything about it.
Yeah.
And then the taxis wasn't going up there, but guests was going up there. And that wasn't good, that they was going by themselves and stuff like that. So, but those are the things, when you go up in those hills and you look down and you see how St. Martin...
Magnificent.
Beautiful, beautiful. You could see St. Bart's from up there. Yeah.
Cool. So, one thing that comes to mind, in addition to what you do as a taxi driver, is I remember you shared earlier, remembering when your grandfather would have his chicken coop. And interestingly, you now have several.
Yes.
And one of your business ventures that you sell eggs. So I'm curious about, how did you start that and how is it going so far?
Well, that was actually, it started out being a dream of my husband's. And as I said, his family also, most of his sisters and brothers, I think all of them were born in Aruba, but as we just say, we from here, So our roots are from here. And I remember on the day before we got married, he ordered chickens and he had them in his mother's yard. He went to work, but it was raining and there were baby chicks. This was my first experience on dealing with chickens alone. And it started to rain. These poor chickens were getting wet, and when little baby chicks get wet, they die. So now we're inside taking up chickens and trying to get them, covered and all that. It was myself, his nephews, and he was stuck on the job because he was working night auditor. So he's stuck at a job, and we're cleaning up chickens. Poor chickens were died, put it one side. The ones who are alive, we're trying to keep them, alive and stuff like that. And after that, I decided, nope, no more chickens for me. I don't want to see nothing with chickens. And, after we got married, we decided we're going to go into the poultry business. So we went to Puerto Rico for our research and hands-on learning. We went to Jamaica for it. After which we came back, we started our first set of chickens. We had layers and broilers, and it was going well up until the hurricane. The hurricane came and went with everything, and we had to start it all over again. We started just before COVID. And believe it or not, that was what took us through COVID. And that's
pandemic.
where the business was rebirthed.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, but hey, it was during COVID that we heard so much talk about, planting and producing our own because of the lockdowns and food security.
And I hope we remain with that.
Yes,
I hope
it's essential.
Yes, because now that people are seeing ships coming back and planes coming back, we're starting to take our eyes off of that again and start looking at, the economy in a different way. However,
In the old way, yep.
Yep. However, we should stick to our gardening, our poultry, our farming. Yeah, to be able to, we have to, on the island, we have to go back to that. Have to.
Yes. So one thing that comes to mind is, for example, so you mentioned that you have layers and broilers, but what I do know, because I haven't visited your farm, you have even different types of chickens.
Yes.
So what are different types you have, and do they have a different function that you use?
Yes.
Them for?
The world of chickens is much bigger than a lot of people realize. Okay, so the layers, they do just that. They lay. Okay? Of course, you can eat the meat too. But the thing is with the layers, their meat, after they're laying so long, it's a little more tough. Then you have the broilers. The broilers are the meat fowls, the ones that you usually raise and then butcher. Besides that, you have the fancy chickens. Like, I wish I had a picture to show you, but we have, I think I do. We have the Polish, the crest Polish, and then we also had the silky, the Chinese silky. That is a chicken. It looks like a rabbit. It has
Interesting.
instead of having the feathers like a regular chicken, it has these fine feathers like how the rabbit fur is. Yeah. It's called a silky chicken. There's a lot of different, we have the bantams, which is smaller ones. There is different breeds of those that are very interesting, to look at. So besides the regular working chickens, we have the fancy chickens, which is nice to just have in the yard. Although we have lots of threats in the hills, we live in the hills. We have a lot of threats with mongoose,
rats,
and raccoons.
Raccoons.
Yes. St. Martin, a lot of people don't realize it, but we have raccoons on St. Martin. I think for one of the hurricanes, when the zoo got hit, I think some of the raccoons went out, because I remember the first time I saw a raccoon, it was not even in Dutch Quarter, it was in Guana Bay. And I was driving with some guests. I was taking them to the hotel that they have in Guana Bay. And I saw this little bear. He looked like he was so cute. And I was like, I open my window and I look out. The guests say, close that window. Close it now. So I close it up. And they said, do you know what that is? That's a raccoon. That thing will cut you up. That thing will kill you. And I was like, oh my gosh, But for me, it was just, it had looked like a little bear. It was
animal.
cute.
No, they're very dangerous.
Yeah, I didn't know that. The guest was like freaking out.
It's strange that I didn't know we have raccoons on St. Martin.
Yes. And
The monkeys also a threat?
yeah, we have the monkeys. A lot of people complain about the monkeys. I just call them my monkeys because they just come in my yard, pick the mangoes and stuff, to pick the fruits. And in our case, there are a family of monkeys that would come, and we would stay inside and look at them. Sometimes we video them. The male monkey would go up in a tree, pick a mango, bring it down, give it to the babies, give it to his wife, and they would walk up and go, and sometimes we do it with the papayas also, and the soursop, the noni tree, but not that they come down and break the trees. I have heard in one of the organizations that I'm affiliated with, where people complain about them coming down and breaking the trees and just biting a mango and throwing it down instead of, eating.
That I've seen, yeah.
Yeah, and messing it up and so. Well, maybe my mangoes and my trees sweet, so let's just take one and go. But this is basically what we have when it comes to the monkeys. Iguanas, we have a lot of iguanas. Sometimes they would go on one of our fruit trees and just clean it out, leaves and all, and then after a rain or two, you see them coming back. But
they don't bother the chickens, basically.
No, they don't bother the chickens.
So considering the predators that you have to deal with, what goes into raising chickens, and what is your day like, I guess, on the farm?
Day in the farm, we have to get up early, really early. Depends on the weather. Let's say if it's a day where it rains a lot for a few days, the first thing we would have to do is get our boots on, go up in the cages and clean the cages out. And that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, because you don't want them in mud and mess and the cages smelling and all that. Remember, what we are selling is what we would eat for ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we, automatically, we would have to clean those cages, get sawdust. When the place is dry, put sawdust. And you could literally see that, they're happier. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And clean out their boxes, because the layers, they have different boxes that they lay in. Clean where the water, we use the spouting. Mm-hmm. And we have water that runs in it. So you have to clean that, disinfect that. Again, it goes back to whatever you're going to eat. You want it to be clean, right? Mm-hmm. So with them, it's the same thing. Cleaning the cages alone, 1 cage a day, because it's so much work. And then, of course, you have to feed them. Our chickens are not only reared indoors, inside the cages. Our chickens rear outside too.
And free range.
So, yes. So in the daytime, they would be out while we clean and fix the water and put the food and, sometimes you have work to do on the cage itself. Because you have to always make it predator proof.
Yes, yeah.
We had a little hole one mm-hmm. time, and we did not realize what was going on. But a mongoose, it was 2 of them actually, was going in the cage. And we didn't know. Mm-hmm. Until one day they was trying to get one of the chickens out. But the chicken was too big to come out, so they pulled from his head. Oh. And the chicken head was outside the cage and the body was inside, and you have this long... He wasn't giving up. I don't know what happened with that mongoose, but he was not giving up. And we had to fix that because, we were losing chickens and we didn't even realize it.
Yeah, and of course that impacts your business because
Yes.
the chicken itself is what
Yes.
delivers the assets.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So,
Anything else with that concern? Okay, no problem. So, having said that, Perla, I'm curious to know that, for persons like yourself, I know that there are a couple of people in agriculture and raising poultry. What is the type of support they find necessary, and what are the resources that you guys tend to use often in making your business successful?
okay, well, actually, we could actually work with each other a little more as farmers. Unfortunately, I think too much of us farmers, we want to do our business ourselves, and that I think is one of our downfalls. I remember I still have it, a little chat with a few farmers on it. And one of the things I would do if, for instance, something is happening by me, or if I have a big order for eggs, okay, I do not have that amount of eggs, I think my thing to do is to call my fellow farmers. Listen, anybody have a surplus? I need some eggs, because we all have practically the same setup. Just that because we're individual farmers, we tend to keep it for ourselves. That is something on this island I think we should work on. We should get together. We should work together to get our product out.
Yeah, and lobby together too.
Yes, lobby together. This way we can come up against a lot more. Sometimes I run out of feed. You go by the where we get the feed, by the store, the shop, and this person don't have the feed. You go to another one, they don't have the feed. And, so those are some of the problems we have, but we try to roll it out on our own instead of coming together and even maybe suggesting, okay, well, if you have 4 suppliers, allow us to know then when this one run out so that we could go to this one. And, we can at least do something like that. But unfortunately, we don't.
Gotcha.
We don't.
Okay. And what is it like for you finally then, at least in, reaching out to clients, businesses and stuff to get your products out there?
Okay, well, we all have our own clients. Even the other farmers, they have their own clients. We have our own. I would post pictures and stuff like that on my WhatsApp, on Facebook. We have on social media on a whole. And we would have our clients calling us and, yeah, we need these eggs. We deliver. So every day, whatever clients need, we just go and we take it for them.
Okay. And so for anyone who wants to contact you for eggs and so forth, or even a tour, what is your contact info?
Thank you. My phone number is 721-5811-315. So 5811-315.
Okay, great.
Okay, and that's WhatsApp. So you just send me a WhatsApp. Tell me if you want a tour or you want eggs. And I'll be happy to assist you with any of them.
Cool. And a tour could actually be being on a farm, helping with bagging the eggs. So with that, Perla, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on the program. I did enjoy what you've shared, part of our reality here in St. Martin. And anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, no, let's just try together as a community, first of all, to keep our island clean. It's not the business of the people that is being paid to pick the garbage up, it is all of our business.
For sure.
So let's try, even the small things in our yard, whatever, we keep our island clean. That's number one for our guests. And please, everyone, even if you have to do it on your porch, on your garden, we need to get back to gardening. We need to get back to eating healthy, and we need to grow our own food.
Definitely. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
to our viewers and listeners, that was Miss Perla Rombley, and I hope that this was a conversation that you did enjoy, and be sure to catch the next one tomorrow. Take care.